I never believed in ghosts or curses or any of that supernatural nonsense. But that all changed when we moved to that small town and bought that cursed Christmas tree. It was a cold December morning when we arrived at the house, an old, slightly worn-out place on the edge of town. My parents thought it would be the perfect spot for our first real Christmas as a family. The house had a charm to it, though it did give off a certain eerie vibe. It was exactly what you'd picture in a Christmas movie. Snow gently falling outside, the smell of pine in the air, and the soft glow of holiday lights from the windows. But there was something off about the place, something I couldn't quite place. That afternoon, we went to the local Christmas shop to pick out a tree. The shop was small, with wooden beams and a musty scent that reminded me of a forgotten attic. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Fisher, greeted us with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. After a brief chat, my mom picked out the most beautiful tree I'd ever seen.
Wonderful. Come on, touch it.
It was large, with thick branches and needles that shimmered as if dusted with a little bit of magic. But Mr. Fisher seemed strangely reluctant to sell it to us, almost like he was warning us without saying a word. When we brought it home, something felt wrong. The tree stood proudly in the corner of our living room, yet it was hard to shake the feeling that it wasn't just a tree. That night, we began decorating it, and I swear, every time the lights flickered on, I saw shadows move in the corners of my eyes. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just the low light playing tricks on me. But when I went to bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. Was it the tree? Was I imagining things? I tossed and turned, unable to shake the sense of dread creeping up my spine. Around midnight, I heard it, soft whispers, like a distant murmur, coming from the direction of the living room. I crept out of bed and tiptoed toward the sound. As I passed the hallway, I saw it, the tree's lights flickering wildly, casting long, twisted shadows across the walls. And that's when I saw them. The figures. They were faint at first, just shadows, but then they became clearer. Figures of people, pale, ghostly figures, hovering around the tree. Their eyes were vacant, their faces twisted in eternal sorrow. The whispering grew louder, until it felt like it was coming from all around me. My heart raced, and I froze in place. One of the figures turned its head, locking eyes with me, and I could feel the coldness in its gaze seep into my very soul. I blinked, and they were gone. I didn't dare tell my parents. They'd think I was crazy, that I was just having nightmares. The next morning, I tried to brush it off, but the whispers didn't stop. Every time I passed by the tree, I could feel its presence, like it was watching me. Days passed, and the odd occurrences only got worse. It wasn't just the whispers anymore. Objects began to move on their own, little things at first. A cup sliding across the table, a book falling from the shelf. But then came the noises. Loud bangs like something, or someone, was slamming against the walls. My parents couldn't hear it. They refused to believe me. But I knew the truth. The tree was alive, and not in a good way. One day, I decided to investigate. I had to know what was happening. I went to the local library and began researching the history of the tree. It wasn't long before I came across an old newspaper article from the early 1900s. The headline read, "Family found dead on Christmas Eve. Mystery unsolved." I read the article with growing unease. It described the brutal murder of a family who had lived in the house where we now live. The father, a man named Samuel Bishop, had gone mad and killed his wife and children during a holiday celebration. The article didn't go into details, but it said that after the murders, the family's Christmas tree, one just like ours, was said to be haunted. The townspeople believed that the tree had absorbed the spirits of the dead family, trapping their souls inside. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Was it possible? Could this tree, our tree, be the same one? It seemed absurd, but I couldn't ignore the strange, terrifying events happening around me. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I had to confront the tree. There was no other choice. I sat in front of it, staring at the lights as they flickered. I tried to steady my breathing, but the air around me felt heavy, suffocating. Then it happened. The whispers returned, louder than ever. I could hear them clearly now. "Help us. Let us go." Suddenly, I felt something cold brush against my cheek. A shadow moved, and I watched in horror as the tree seemed to grow. The branches reached out toward me, as if it were alive and trying to pull me in. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. Then, a thought crossed my mind. What if the tree wasn't just a tree? What if it was some kind of prison, holding those poor souls captive for eternity? I had to stop it. I couldn't let it keep tormenting us. The next day, I returned to Mr. Fisher's shop. He wasn't there, but his assistant, a kind young woman named Emma, was. She looked at me curiously when I asked about the tree, but when I mentioned the Bishop family's story, her expression changed. "You don't know the whole story," she said, her voice trembling. "The tree, it's cursed. The family's souls are trapped inside it, and it doesn't let go easily." I begged her to help me, to give me some way to break the curse. She told me there was only one way. I had to return the tree to its original resting place, on the land where the Bishop family had been killed. That night, I did it. I drove to the old abandoned house where the Bishop family had lived. It was a crumbling, haunted place, just as I had imagined. The air was thick with despair, and the wind howled through the broken windows. I dragged the tree out of my car and placed it in front of the house. As soon as I did, the whispers stopped. For the first time in days, I felt a strange sense of peace. I never spoke of it again. We left the town the next day, and I haven't thought about that tree since. But every year, when Christmas rolls around, I can't help but wonder, was it really the tree that was haunted? Or was it the place itself, holding on to the tragedy of the past? I don't know, but I'll never forget the horrors of that Christmas. I was 15 the summer it happened, old enough to think I understood danger, young enough to still treat the world like a playground. My best friend Ethan lived in a quiet neighborhood tucked against a patch of forest and a stretch of abandoned railroad tracks. During the day, the place felt normal, boring even. But at night, it changed. Ethan's parents always went to bed early, and once the house settled into silence, he and I would slip out the window and roam the neighborhood. Not to cause trouble, just to feel something. When you're 15 and restless, even walking around at 2 a.m. feels like rebellion. But the night, everything changed. The world outside felt wrong before we even left the yard. The air was heavy, humid, no breeze, no insects, no distant highway noise. It felt like stepping into a photograph, frozen, soundless, watching you. We walked our usual lap around the street, but the quiet felt suffocating. After a while, Ethan said, "Let's go. Check the tracks. Behind his neighborhood, a steep embankment led up to old rusted train tracks that wound deep into the woods. Further down, in a clearing, a few homeless men sometimes camped. We knew about it because of Tommy, one of the regulars. Tommy was an old friend of Ethan's dad. A quiet guy, not dangerous, just sad. He often let us hang around in the daytime, so going toward his camp at night didn't feel insane, just stupid. We climbed the gravel slope, each step crunching loudly in the silence. When we reached the tracks, the rails stretched into darkness like two metal veins cutting through the forest. The trees loomed on either side, thick and shadowy. Smoke. Ethan pointed. See the fire? Between the trees ahead, a faint orange glow flickered. That had to be Tommy. Relieved, we lowered ourselves into the brush and crept toward the clearing the way we always did. Quiet, cautious, hidden. But as soon as we saw the camp, I felt my stomach tighten. The fire was burning. The tents were set up, but no one sat near the flames. The light from the fire flickered against the trunks, carving shadows everywhere. Then I saw movement, a shape, tall, unnaturally tall, stood just beyond the firelight, perfectly still, facing the tracks, facing us. Is that him? Ethan whispered. Tommy was maybe 5'9". This thing towered. It didn't sway. It didn't shift weight. It didn't breathe loudly, just stood. The fire behind it made it look like a cutout from reality, like its edges were wrong, slightly blurred, as if the light refused to land on it. Then its head tilted, slowly, too slowly. Like something learning how to mimic a human curiosity, but failing. Ethan's breath hitched. That's not Tommy. Everything inside me screamed run. But before we could move, the figure stepped sideways, out of the firelight, and vanished behind a tree without a sound. We froze. Nothing moved. No footsteps, no breathing, just silence. Then behind us, a footstep close. I spun around. The figure stood on the path behind us. No transition, no approach, just there, 10 feet away. I could see it more clearly now. Its limbs were too long, arms hanging almost to its knees. Its posture was stiff, shoulders sharp and angular. Its face, if it had one, was obscured by shadow, but two faint, reflective specks hovered where eyes should be. Ethan mouthed, "Go." We backed away, stepping carefully onto the tracks again. Every instinct screamed that turning our backs was a terrible idea, but staying was worse. We started walking quickly, trying not to run yet, trying not to look terrified. After about 20 steps, Ethan whispered, "Do you hear that?" I didn't, and that was the problem. I didn't hear it. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing behind us. I risked a glance. The figure was walking toward us. My voice cracked. "Run!" We sprinted. Branches whipped our arms. Gravel flew behind us. To our left, something enormous moved between the trees, matching our speed. Silent, dark, shadow gliding with impossible smoothness. "It's beside us," Ethan screamed. Up ahead, the old wooden bridge came into view, a narrow crossing over a small creek. If we made it across, we'd be near the neighborhood again. We hit the bridge hard, shoes thudding loudly on the planks. Halfway across, a massive crash sounded behind us. A tree shaking violently, something slamming into it. The shadow shape in the forest blurred forward, closer, faster than any human could sprint. We reached the end of the bridge and spun around. The figure stood at the start of the bridge, blocking the only path back. It stepped onto the wood. The planks creaked, faster each time, smooth, unnatural, like gravity didn't apply. Its head twitched, then its arms spasmed violently, as if it were deciding how to move. I felt my sanity slipping. Before it could reach us, a train horn blared in the distance. The tracks vibrated violently beneath the bridge. The creature froze. Its head snapped toward the sound like a startled animal. Then its back arched grotesquely, joints popping, limbs bending backward. In one horrific motion, it dropped to all fours, spine cracking like dry wood, and it bolted into the trees, gone so fast it left the firelight flickering in its wake. Ethan grabbed my shirt. Go now. We didn't stop running until we reached his backyard, climbed through the window, locked it, and collapsed on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. For almost an hour, we sat in silence, adrenaline slowly draining from our bodies. A quiet knock on the window. We froze. Another tap. Then something dragged slowly across the glass. Long, deliberate. We stared at the floor. Neither of us dared look up. For a full minute, the thing traced the glass with whatever appendage it used. Then silence. We didn't sleep. We didn't move. We waited until sunrise. Only then did we lift the blinds. The yard was empty, but below the window were footprints. Wide, deep, longer than any human foot. And they weren't walking away. They stood in one place, facing the house, facing the window, facing us. We never spoke of that night again. Tommy disappeared from the tracks weeks later. His camp was abandoned. Nothing left but ashes. And some nights, when I wake up between 2 and 3 a.m., I swear I hear that same soft tapping on my window. As if it's reminding me it never really left. As if it's waiting for me to come back to the tracks. I never expected a single swipe to rearrange the bones of my life. At 23, I was barely holding things together. Part-time shifts at a late-night deli. Lectures I sometimes slept through. Rent that felt like a fist around my throat. My parents were a memory of arguments and silence. My sister had moved overseas. I had a tiny room above a bakery in Newtown and a roommate, Zoe, who flirted with danger like it was a hobby. When my roommate Zoe joked one night, "Just get a sugar daddy, Ivy. Half the girls I know already do." I laughed, but later, lying in bed scrolling through Tinder, I couldn't ignore how easy the idea sounded. I laughed then, the kind of laugh that never reached my eyes. Still, alone in bed, I scrolled through profiles until a message popped up from Victor Hawthorne. He was 50, he said, but the photos were of a man who might have aged on set. Tailored coats, a silver widow's peak, and eyes that were far too precise. His bio, collector of rare things, looking for a companion who understands beauty. His message appeared a heartbeat after I swiped yes. "Hello, Ivy. Your photo of an honesty I rarely see. Would you allow me to show you dinner?" He wrote like someone who expected the world to fall into place. I told myself it was harmless. I needed the money. I wanted to feel wanted. The restaurant was one I'd only read about in columnists' feeds. Chandeliers, linen that smelled of strangers' wealth. Victor stood as I entered with a movement so practiced it could have been choreographed. He kissed my hand with an old-fashioned courtesy and ordered a bottle I couldn't have named. He listened. He spoke about art, the way other people spoke about weather, with certainty and an impatience that made him sound important. When I fumbled a joke about my student loans, he reached across and set a thin envelope between us. "For a month's rent," he said. "Come to the gallery Saturday. There's something you should see." The envelope had more money than I'd seen in the past 3 months. It felt like oxygen. Victor didn't pressure me for anything sexual. He called himself a patron. He invited me to his townhouse in Paddington, which smelled of old paper and citrus. He taught me how to taste wine as if I'd been born with the wrong tongue, took me to auction previews, and kept me in a net of compliments so fine I hardly noticed when they tightened. "Have you ever wanted to be preserved?" he asked once, idly, while I leaned over his library's balcony. The city below spread like a map. "I don't know what you mean," I said. "To hold something in the moment," he said, almost smiling. "To keep it from decay. There are graceful ways to keep beauty untouched. His words made me laugh in a way that was too small. There was a coldness there, a habit of looking at people as objects to be curated. Still, I stayed because it was easier than leaving. Over the weeks, I watched him move through the city like someone with keys to rooms no one else knew. He introduced me to younger women who hung on his sentences with hungry politeness. Once I saw one of them, Maya, standing by a sculpture in an off-site exhibition, her hands trembling around a glass of water. She was 19 and looked like she'd swallowed a storm. After that, I sated on Maya. I told myself I was protective. I told myself I was jealous. Victor only smiled when I mentioned her. "She's fragile," he said. "She needs someone careful." One evening, he invited me to a small gathering at the townhouse. Zoe had gone out of town, and I almost declined. But the money, the easy warmth of being chosen, won. The other guest was Maya. She smiled at me with lips that didn't reach her eyes. The party was quiet, the three of us sliding between conversation that was polite and pitched. Victor suggested a tour of his private rooms, a part of the house he kept locked for collectors. The basement, he called it, where old things were kept in air that smelled like cedar and winter. When we reached the door, the mood changed. The light was flat. Maya was pale, and for the first time, I noticed that she flinched at his touch. "I want to show you what preservation looks like," Victor said, gentle as a teacher. "You'll understand." I blinked, confused, and then he stabbed Maya. Her scream was muffled as his hand clamped over her mouth. Blood sprayed against the polished floor. My body froze, my lungs locked. When she didn't stir, panic carved a tunnel through me. Victor's face went unreadable. He said quietly that accidents happened and that we needed to handle it so the police didn't turn the house inside out for months. He spoke as if he were arranging flowers. I wanted to run, to scream, but my legs betrayed me. Instead, I helped. I don't remember why. Maybe fear, maybe shock, maybe his control over me was stronger than I ever admitted. I helped him drag Eva's body, helped clean the blood. Afterwards, Victor poured me wine and sat across the table with an expression like a verdict. "You understand why I do this?" he asked. "To keep things pristine, to free them from vulgar endings." 2 nights later, the police came. Someone in the building had heard screaming, or maybe seen us with a door shut too tightly. I never learned who. I remember the bright uniforms, the questions, my voice quavering when they asked where I'd been that night. Victor spoke smoothly, with names and alibis and the practiced ease of a man who had rehearsed an explanation. He looked at me once in court, a small, almost tender glance, and it felt like being felt. Newspapers made a monument of the story. Victor Hawthorne, collector, charged with manslaughter. Maya, the missing student. They called me a companion to a suspect, a witness, a person who might have more to say. The cameras looked through me as if I were glass to be tested. At the trial, I learned to speak in short sentences. At night, I learned to listen for my own footfalls in the apartment, to catalog the times I had been led and the times I had consented. Victor's lawyers painted him as eccentric, a man fascinated by mortality. His eyes, when he glanced at me across the courtroom, said something different: ownership, amusement, and an inch of threat. After the verdict, after the press left, and the house was sealed for evidence, I found myself sitting on the curb outside the building, watching strangers pass. Everyone assumed I was damaged in ways I could not fully explain. Sometimes I think I was. Sometimes I think I was merely tired. Sometimes I still open the message that started it, the casual, elegant request to meet. And the words look like an invitation written in a language I did not understand. "Would you allow me to show you dinner?" they say, and I try to tell myself the truth, that I'd been hungry for much longer than one night could fix, and that hunger makes people do things they don't recognize later. I don't know if I was his victim or his accomplice. I only know what the nights taught me, how easily terror could be folded into civility, how a polished hand can press the sharpest things into your palm while you count your blessings. The choice, in the end, felt like a paper I'd signed without opening. And in quieter moments, when rain makes the pavement shine like a gallery floor, I still feel the memory of his voice telling me why he believed he was right, and the small, unbearable twist when someone you let look after you decides you are an object he will keep, whether you agree or not. I remember the first time I heard about the Midnight Cult was on a rainy evening when my friends and I were hanging out at a small coffee shop in town. That night, none of us thought that our banter would lead to an experience we would never forget. As I scrolled through my phone, I came across an article about a mysterious group of people living in this town. They were called the Midnight Cult. Bizarre stories of strange rituals, unexplained disappearances, and possessed souls were all in the art. I immediately handed the phone to the group. "Look at this. I just found a super weird story. A secret society called the Midnight Cult. I hear they hold rituals at midnight in this town." Jack's eyes lit up. "That sounds interesting. I've never heard of them. What do they do?" Ethan shrugged. "It's probably just a bunch of fiction. Don't believe these things. They're just rumors." Mia was cautious. "But what if there really is some secret society that does some kind of supernatural ritual? I don't think we should get involved." But the more I heard, the more I learned, the more my group of friends and I were drawn in. No one could deny that the name the Midnight Cult had created such a great curiosity that we couldn't stop thinking about it. Especially when we found information about a ceremony tonight, right in our town. And I, despite having a bad feeling, still couldn't give up. I lowered my voice. "I think we should go find out. Anyway, if it's just a rumor, we have nothing to lose."
What was that?
Jack
Did you
was
hear that?
excited. "That's right. I can't miss this opportunity. Let's go." Mia worried. "Come on, guys. We can't just go there like that. Maybe things aren't as simple as we think." We decided to go. No one in the group really wanted to give up. And even though I had a strange feeling, I still went with them. This feeling, I think, was a combination of curiosity and fear. Every step I took in the dark night felt like a step closer to the inexplicable. When we reached the abandoned house they described, things became even stranger. The house was old, the walls were broken, the windows were broken, and a cold atmosphere hung everywhere. It looked like a house abandoned for a long time, but there was a strange life in it. Ethan whispered, "This is the place. What should we do now?" Jack looked around. "We should go in." "Don't worry, we'll just observe." The door to the house creaked as we opened it, and the air inside was so cold it felt like we were entering another world. A few of the group were starting to feel uneasy, but they continued to follow me. The flashlight on their phones only illuminated a narrow, dark hallway. Jack laughed. "It's probably just a joke. Just keep going." We walked further inside and then we heard a sound. Strange. It was music, but not any music we'd ever heard. It had an eerie sound, making me shiver. And then I realized that the sound wasn't coming from a radio or a speaker, but from a ritual. Mia shivered. "We have to go now, Lily. This isn't a joke." I paused for a moment and then stepped into a room. I felt like something was telling me to do it. A circle of people in black robes stood around a fire, muttering prayers I didn't understand. In the middle of the circle stood a man wearing a black robe and a hood that covered his face. When the light fell on him, I felt an invisible force surrounding him, and I knew immediately that we shouldn't be here. Lucas whispered, "Let's go. What are they doing?" But before we could retreat, the man with the hood turned and looked straight at us. His cold eyes seemed to pierce through me. My whole body froze, and I felt like something terrible was about to happen. Lily trembled. "Go now. We have to get out of here." We hurried away, but as we reached the door, I heard a whisper in my ear. We couldn't escape them. A shadowy figure stood in the darkness, watching our every move. When we left the house, no one said anything. That strange feeling still lingered in me. But I knew we had seen something that no one could explain. The group was silent, only the sound of our heavy footsteps in the dark. I couldn't sleep. The strange feeling after that night followed me all night long. The cold eyes of the man in the abandoned house did not leave my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about the whispers in the wind. We had just witnessed a strange ritual. But what scared me the most was I couldn't understand why there was such a terrifying power in this town. The next morning, I met my friends at the coffee shop. Everyone looked tired and worried. They didn't say much, but there was a fear in their eyes that I couldn't deny. Mia looked at me with worried eyes. "Lily, do you feel like you can't leave that place? Like something is watching us?" Jack's face paled. "Yeah, I can't shake the feeling that they're watching us. I've never seen anything like it." Ethan pondered. "But why us? They won't leave us alone. I have a feeling this isn't as simple as a joke." Lucas shook his head, trying to laugh. "No way. We must have imagined it." But I knew, despite everyone's efforts to act calm, we were all scared. I was starting to feel like something bigger was coming. It wasn't just curiosity, but something that was pulling us into a spiral we couldn't escape. Mia began to feel strange things happening around her. She told me that she had strange dreams where she saw herself standing in a circle, like what we had witnessed in the house yesterday. But this time, she wasn't just standing there. She seemed to be participating in the ritual. Mia trembled. "Lily, I can't take it anymore. It feels like something is waiting for me, and I can't control it." As time went on, we felt more and more haunted. One evening, I received a strange text message from an unknown number. The message had only one sentence: "We're not done yet." I felt frozen in place. It wasn't a threat, but an affirmation that they knew we were there, and we couldn't escape. I whispered to myself, "What should we do now?" We decided to go back to the abandoned house. None of us wanted to do it, but we knew that only by doing so could we find out the truth about the Midnight Cult. I couldn't stop thinking about that message and the feeling that someone was watching us every step of the way. Did they really know everything about us? We were back. No one said a word, but we all understood that there was no turning back. Something had been awakened last night, and we couldn't just go back to the way things were. Ethan looked at the house. We have to prepare ourselves for what's coming. If we go in there again, things won't be the same. I couldn't help but agree. The abandoned house still stood there, like a dark monster waiting. As we entered, the cold and silent air enveloped us. This feeling, I can't describe it in words. I could feel the presence of something different, as if we were entering another dimension. Jack muttered, "There's definitely something in there. I feel like someone is watching us." We entered the room where we had witnessed the ritual yesterday. But this time, everything was different. Strange lights danced on the walls, and strange drawings began to appear on the walls, as if they had a life of their own. Lily gasped. "Don't look at the drawings. Try not to look at them." Suddenly, a sound rang out from behind us. A terrible noise, as if something was moving in the darkness. I turned around, and what I saw made me unable to believe my eyes. A black shadow, large and shapeless, was coming towards us. It wasn't a person, nor was it an animal. It was like a creature from another world, with long arms reaching out from the darkness. Lucas shouted, "Run! Everyone run!" We ran like we had never run before, but there seemed to be no way out. That black shadow was always behind us, chasing us, not letting us escape. I could feel its cold breath, as if it wanted to swallow us. When we finally got out, the house was suddenly silent. No more noise, no more strange lights. Everything was eerily quiet. But I knew that dark shadow hadn't left. It was still waiting in the darkness. Lily gasped. "We can't stop. If we want to survive, we have to find a way to kill them. But how?" We escaped the abandoned house, but that feeling still lingered. The dark shadows, the strange lights, the incomprehensible whispers. They all followed us, keeping us from sleeping. We knew it wasn't over. The Midnight Cult were no ordinary group of people, and what we had witnessed was just the tip of the iceberg. Last night, Mia had a strange dream. She dreamed that she was pulled into a dark crypt where strange paintings on the walls were moving. And there, a door opened, leading to another world, a world we couldn't imagine. Her feelings were so real, so intense, and I knew that dream was a sign that we needed to do something before it was too late. Lily held Mia's hand, worried. "Mia, are you sure you're okay? Your dream, it wasn't a normal dream." Mia sighed, her face pale. "I don't know. It was like a warning, an invitation. Those doors weren't just dreams. I felt like I actually saw them." Jack was shocked. "We can't just sit here and ignore it. This isn't just a group of people. They have real power. We have to do something." But I knew we couldn't continue living in fear forever. We needed to find out about the Midnight Cult, about their origins and the rituals they performed. Only then could we escape them. And I decided, even if I had to sacrifice myself, I would find out the truth. I suggested the group go find more clues. We needed to learn more about the abandoned house and the traces that this secret society had left behind. We began to dig through old documents, newspaper articles, and rumors in the town. One afternoon, we went to the town library, where there was a warehouse of old books that had long been abandoned. Ethan flipped through the old books. It seems that everything started with an event in the 1920s. A group of people discovered an underground temple where they began performing occult rituals. The scary thing is, they were not normal people. We continued to learn, and I discovered that the Midnight Cult had existed for a long time. They were people haunted by a dark power, capable of manipulating the afterlife. The temple they discovered was an ancient place, built on the foundations of a long-lost civilization. The paintings on the walls of the abandoned house were not random. They were ancient symbols, indicating the path to open the door between two worlds. I whispered, shocked. This is not a joke. This is real. They are opening a door, and we are in the middle of it. The group could do nothing but continue their search. We had discovered a new location, a place the paintings on the walls pointed to, a forest outside the town, where there was an ancient temple. That was where we had to go. But the one thing I could not forget was Mia's dream and the doors in it. I felt like what we were looking for, the world we could not understand, was slowly opening up before our eyes. I said with determination, "We cannot stop. Everything will end if we do not act now. Come with me." As our group approached the temple, suddenly a creepy sound echoed in the air, a low laugh, as if someone was watching us from afar. The group turned around, but saw nothing. A cold and mysterious feeling suddenly enveloped us, and I knew something terrible was waiting ahead. We reached the forest. Every step in the darkness of the dense trees made me feel more and more surrounded. It felt like someone was watching us, but when we turned around, there was nothing but darkness and the rustling of leaves. Everything seemed silent, but the silence made me feel even more uneasy. We found traces leading to an ancient temple, which the drawings in the abandoned house and the documents we found in the library pointed to. Everything was slowly coming together. I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. Could we escape the control of the Midnight Cult? Or were we walking into an inescapable trap? As we entered the area near the temple, the atmosphere changed. The smell of damp earth and an eerie silence filled the air. It felt like we were entering a different dimension, no longer part of the real world. I could feel something reaching out from the darkness, as if the temple walls were watching us, watching and waiting. Lucas whispered, "Everything here is strange. This is where they perform rituals, right?" Jack tried to contain his anxiety. "Of course. We have to be careful. Don't get trapped." We entered the temple. There were ancient drawings inside, strange writings that we couldn't understand. All of them were drawn on the stone walls, forming mysterious circles and shapes. I didn't know why, but I felt like these drawings were calling us, leading us into something. There was no return. Mia trembled. "We have to stop. This feeling, it's not good at all." Ethan chuckled softly, trying to reassure. "We can't go back, Mia. We have to find the truth." As I approached one particular painting, I realized there was something familiar about it. An image I had seen in Mia's dream. It was the door I could not forget. And suddenly, I understood. These paintings were not just decorations. They were maps, guides that would lead us to the place where the secret society was performing its ritual. I whispered, This is the door, right?" We all stood still, looking at the painting. A strange feeling rose in my heart. I knew that we were entering a dangerous game, and if we did not act in time, we might never return. And then, just as I was about to say something, a sound came from behind us. Heavy footsteps, not ours. We turned, and that was when I saw strange figures standing in the darkness, watching us. The fear had turned into determination. We couldn't back down. Those figures weren't just strangers. They were members of the Midnight Cult, and they had been watching us for a long time. Now, we had no choice but to face them. The temple wasn't just a place for rituals. It was also a place where a terrifying power was held. I could feel that power right now, the feeling that if we didn't stop, we would be swallowed by the darkness. Those figures were approaching. Their footsteps echoed in the silence, like a warning that we had gone too far. My group stood still. No one said anything. The members of the secret society were all dressed in black. Their faces were invisible. Only their cold eyes were staring at us. I whispered to the group, "Don't let them get the upper hand. We have to do something now." I don't know if I have the strength to face them, but I know if we don't do something, we won't be able to escape from here. One of the figures stepped forward, and I could feel the terrifying power from them. They weren't humans anymore. They were manipulated creatures, and I could clearly see that they wouldn't stop until we were defeated. Jack growled, "We won't give up. Not this time." Ethan tried to stay calm. "Don't worry, we'll find a way." Suddenly, I felt a cold air pass over me. The cracks in the wall began to glow, and the strange sounds from the paintings seemed to come to life. An invisible force was trying to force us closer to the mysterious door we had seen in our dreams. Mia struggled. "We have to close this door, otherwise everything will collapse." The group started running towards the painting, which might be the key to stopping it all. But the figures in the secret society were not going to let us escape so easily. A fierce confrontation between life and death was happening right before our eyes. As we approached the painting, a powerful light from the door opened, and I felt an extremely strong pull from it. A terrible force was slowly pulling us into another world. In that moment, I realized a terrifying truth. We were not just dealing with a secret society, but a powerful supernatural force that we could not control. I gasped, desperate. "It can't be. We have to stop." The door opened, and we were pulled into darkness. What happened next? I couldn't be sure. But we stepped through that door, and it was unlike anything we had ever imagined. I couldn't understand what was happening. We stepped through that door, and when I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the temple. Everything around me was blurry, as if I was in another space, a completely different world. I could feel a strange power spreading throughout this space, making me feel like I was no longer myself. Strange sounds, incomprehensible whispers echoed in my head. The air was cold and thick, as if time had stopped here. I whispered, "Where is this? Where are we?" Ethan's voice was filled with worry. "Where have we entered? This is not our world." We stood still, looking around. Unfamiliar gates, strange drawings on the walls, and the dim light from mysterious lamps. The group did not dare to say anything, just silently observing everything. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare that I could not escape. Miarun trembled, looking up. Maybe we have entered another dimension, a world of theirs. We began to move through this strange space, and the deeper we went, the more I felt the oppression from the force that the Midnight Cult worshipped. Every step made me feel like there were invisible eyes watching us from all directions. Lucas doubted. We can't keep going forever. Something's wrong. Everything is too strange. A sudden flash of light stopped us. Before us was a large wall with ancient symbols on it. Part of me wanted to leave immediately, but the other part couldn't stop looking at those symbols. They seemed to be calling to me as if I had some kind of connection to them. Lily whispered. These symbols, they're similar to the ones we saw in the abandoned house. I moved closer, and when I touched the wall, the symbols began to glow, and immediately, a door opened. I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt like I couldn't stop. It felt like I was being pulled into something I couldn't control. Ethan turned around, panicked. Don't do this, Lily. But it was too late. The door opened, and we stepped through it. We didn't know where we were going, but I felt one thing. Things were spiraling out of control. We stepped into a larger space. Nothing but darkness. Soft laughter rang out from somewhere, as if someone was watching us. I felt the presence of an unseen force, and I knew we had gone too far. This door wasn't the way home. It was leading us into a place we couldn't imagine. Lily gasped. We have to go back. We can't go on. But when I turned around, the door was gone. We couldn't turn back, couldn't retreat. There was only darkness and strange sounds. And something very close, waiting for us. We had entered a world we could not understand. Everything around us was strange and dangerous. There was no way back, and I knew one thing for sure. We could not go back. The door we had entered was not the way back anymore. I felt like something was waiting for us, like an invisible monster lurking, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. This world, the world of the Midnight Cult, was full of mysteries, cold stares from the darkness. And we, with all the fear in our hearts, could not retreat. We continued to walk through the dark corridors of this world. Every step made me feel more and more surrounded. Shadows in the darkness were moving around us. I did not know who they were, but we felt like someone was watching our every step. Suddenly, we stopped when a strange sound rang out from ahead. Heavy footsteps, as if something was approaching. The group fell silent, not daring to move. And then, from the darkness, a figure appeared. A person, but not a person. It was a creature with glowing eyes and a cold smile, as if it knew everything about us. I gasped. "What is that?" Ethan froze. "Don't look into its eyes. It's a creature. We must face it." The creature didn't say anything, but I could feel the malice radiating from it. It moved closer, its gaze piercing us. I knew that if we didn't act now, we wouldn't be able to get out of here. I decided to take a chance. Raising my hand, I began to reread the words in the ancient book we found earlier. The words were strange, like a curse. We didn't know if it would work, but as soon as I finished the last sentence, the creature stopped. Lucas sighed in relief. We have to keep going. This is just the beginning. The creature turned and walked away, but I knew it wasn't the only danger. From now on, we would face greater challenges and fight a supernatural force that was manipulating this world. We had no choice but to continue our journey, even if it cost us dearly. I could never forget the look in the creature's eyes. It wasn't just an enemy, it was a representation of the evil we were facing. But now, that evil wasn't just limited to the creatures out there. It had begun to cling to us, to each member of the group. I could feel the change in my friends. Mia, who was the weakest, now began to act strangely. She kept looking at the ancient symbols we found in the temple, and every time she did, she became silent, as if drawn to another force. Mia whispered, "These symbols, they're talking to me. I have to follow them." I tried to suppress my anxiety, but that feeling couldn't be hidden. I didn't know if Mia was being controlled or not, but what I knew was that if we didn't stop, someone would have to die. As we continued through this world, the challenges became more and more intense. We faced strange creatures, secret doors that opened each time, bringing us to another challenge. Once again, we were drawn into a battle with a giant creature. Darkness surrounded, and the laughter of the midnight cult echoed from all sides. Ethan was fighting and panting. We have to find a way to close this door. Otherwise, we will never get out. Just as we were about to retreat, Mia suddenly walked towards a painting on the wall. She looked at it, as if noticing something we could not see. Suddenly, Mia screamed and collapsed. I rushed over, but she could only say one sentence. Mia was trembling, crying. We were tricked. The price is too high. Mia was seriously injured, and we could not continue our journey without helping her. However, her words about the price made me even more worried. Would we have enough strength to fight the Midnight Cult? Or would we have to pay too high a price to escape this place? Mia had regained consciousness, but we knew that everything had changed. She was no longer the same. There was something different in her eyes. It seemed that the Midnight Cult had succeeded in taking over a part of her soul. But we could not stop now. Now we were close to the final goal. A dungeon door opened, and the Midnight Cult was waiting for us on the other side. The final battle took place in the darkness. We all felt the mysterious power weighing down on us. The monstrous creatures rushed at us, but we could not stop. Each of us had our own goals, but together we had to stop the Midnight Cult from opening the door between worlds, where we would all be wiped out. Mia, despite being manipulated, eventually realized that she had to sacrifice herself to close that door. At the last moment, she made a decision that none of us could have expected. Mia sobbed. "This is the only way to save you. Don't worry about me. You must live." The door finally closed, and the world that the Midnight Cult created disappeared. But the price we had to pay was too great. Mia was gone. Her memories would forever haunt us. We escaped, but I knew everything had changed forever. I felt tormented. We could survive, but this price, was it worth it?
I can hardly bring myself to recount the events I witnessed, but you must hear the truth. It weighs heavily on my soul, and I must confess it, for my heart aches with the burden of it all. I am a man of reason, a man of science, and yet what I have seen has shaken me to the core. It began with my friend, Dr. Henry Jekyll, a man of great intellect and kindness. Jekyll had always been held in high regard among our circle of friends and colleagues. We had known each other for many years, and I admired his work in medicine and chemistry. He was a man of duality, as most of us are, but I had no idea how deep those divisions ran. Dr. Jekyll, as I've come to realize, was a man struggling with a part of himself that he could neither accept nor understand. He had told me about his experiments, his attempts to separate the good from the evil within himself. I remember laughing at him, thinking it a foolish fantasy. But when I learned what he had truly done, I could not laugh any longer. It was late one night when I first encountered Mr. Edward Hyde. I had heard rumors of the man, of his terrible temper, his inexplicable fits of violence, and his strange appearance. People spoke of him with fear, and I admit, I was curious to meet him myself. Hyde was known to frequent a shabby building in the poorer part of town, a place I would never have ventured on my own. One evening, as I was passing by, I saw him. Hyde, the very man who had been the subject of our gossip for weeks. He was shorter than I had imagined, but the way he moved, the cruel twist of his smile, and the madness in his eyes made him seem far more menacing than his size suggested. He didn't even acknowledge my presence as I stood watching him, and I felt an involuntary shiver crawl down my spine. After that night, I began to see him more and more often. Hyde would appear on Jekyll's property at strange hours, sometimes even disappearing into the doctor's home at odd times. I confronted Jekyll about it, but he always dismissed my concerns, laughing it off as if Hyde were nothing more than a fleeting acquaintance, nothing to worry about. But I was not convinced. One evening, as I waited in Jekyll's study, I noticed something strange. A vial of strange liquid was sitting on the desk, dark and thick like molasses. Jekyll had been working on a new formula, he told me, something that would bring out the hidden aspects of human nature. He explained it with a sense of quiet pride, but there was something in his eyes that unsettled me. Later that night, I witnessed something I will never forget. It was after midnight when I was awoken by an unnerving sound, a violent crash, and then the unmistakable sound of laughter, but it wasn't Jekyll's voice. It was rough, jagged, full of malice. I rushed to the source of the noise, only to find the laboratory in disarray. The vial shattered on the floor, its contents spilled across the marble tiles. But the most shocking thing was what I saw next. Dr. Jekyll, my friend, was gone. In his place stood the creature I had met before, Hyde. His face twisted into a grotesque grin, and his eyes gleamed with something that resembled madness. The transformation was not subtle. It was as if the very essence of Jekyll had been ripped away, leaving only this vile, monstrous figure in his place. I could hardly comprehend what was happening. My friend, Dr. Jekyll, had vanished, and in his stead was this depraved individual who had terrorized the city. Hyde's appearance, his mannerisms, everything about him was a stark contrast to Jekyll's calm demeanor and intelligence. The very air around him seemed to grow heavy with the presence of evil. Hyde spoke to me in a cold, almost amused tone, explaining the nature of the transformation. He told me how Jekyll had created a potion, a chemical mixture that allowed him to transform into another person, someone without the moral constraints that Jekyll had spent his life adhering to. Hyde was the manifestation of Jekyll's darker desires, his unrestrained urges, freed from the bounds of his conscience. I was stunned. I could hardly believe what he was saying, but the evidence was clear. Hyde was the result of Jekyll's reckless ambition, and the transformation had made him into something entirely separate, an individual who reveled in violence and cruelty. I begged him to stop, to return to the man I had once known, but Hyde only laughed. "You don't understand, utter son," he said. "Jekyll is gone. There is no turning back now. I am free." In that moment, I knew that my friend, Dr. Jekyll, had become a prisoner of his own creation. He had sought to separate the good from the evil within him, and in doing so, he had unleashed a nightmare. I had no choice but to leave. Hyde disappeared again, and Jekyll returned to his normal self, but he was forever changed. The man I once knew was now a shell of himself, tormented by the very thing he had created. I could see the deep sorrow in his eyes, but it was mixed with something darker: fear, regret, and an undeniable longing for the release that Hyde gave him. Over the weeks that followed, I tried to help Jekyll, but every attempt to reach him seemed in vain. His battle with his darker self was a losing one. Eventually, he locked himself away in his laboratory, refusing to see anyone. I did not hear from him for days, and then, one morning, I received a letter from Jekyll's hand. In it, he confessed everything: his experiments, his transformation into Hyde, the horrors he had committed. He told me that he could no longer control Hyde, and that he feared the worst was yet to come. When I arrived at his home, I found the laboratory door locked from the inside. The sound of desperate movements came from within. With a heavy heart, I broke the door down, only to find a lifeless body of my dear friend, Dr. Jekyll. He had taken his own life, unable to bear the horrors Hyde had brought upon him. The letter he left behind was a final plea for forgiveness, a final confession of his tragic mistake. But it was too late. The man who had sought to unlock the secrets of the soul had, in the end, been undone by his own darkness. Now, as I recount these events, I wonder how many of us, deep down, are hiding our own monsters. How many of us would be willing to face the truth of what we are capable of if only we dare to look?